All right, welcome back, ladies and gents. What is this? End of October already? Good gravy. Well, yeah, we are essentially at the end of the month. We should have one more pocket change market report on Wednesday, so last day of the month, next Friday, Halloween. I'd figure that we have this one here, and then we'll have a lot to talk about next week as we kind of close in on the final 2 months of the year. It should be I don't know. It's going to be one of the most surreal things that I think we as collectors and hobbyists in numismatics probably going to go through. From a lot of speculation of it being the end of the Lincoln Cent, which is going to have huge ramifications across the board in how we hunt for these coins. Things are just going to be disappearing. Okay, we're going to see it. We're going to see it over the course of the next, I would say, 3 years. We're just going to see less pennies out in circulation, and because of that, it's not going to give us hunters and gatherers of like varieties and errors not really a whole lot of shot at an economical way of finding these particular coins. And when we look at some of the biggest varieties, the 69S DDO, the 72 DDO, and a few of the others, the 1992 Close AM variants, both in the Philadelphia and Denver coins, you have to understand that these coins are going to become increasingly more difficult to find if we have less pennies out there to hunt through. A lot of people will be sitting on inventory. We're already seeing that. Banks are starting to kind of push back to its customer base. Unfortunately, I also have a bank that is no longer ordering pennies for me, and we've been doing business for over a decade at this bank. So, and they know me by name. All right, not to toot my own horn, but this is kind of like one of those dramatic instances where you could be a customer for life at a specific banking institution, and then all of a sudden they could just turn that faucet off. Probably not controllable by the tellers and maybe even the managers, but it all comes from the top and rolls downhill. So, I hate to burst your guys' bubbles, but we are going to see, we're going to see some pretty crazy things here in the next few years. 2026, again, I'm going to say is going to be a banner year, regardless of what happens to the penny. But all in all, it's going to be quite interesting. And the Pocket Change Market Report videos that we do every week, twice a week, is going to be a key component to how the market is going to respond to these changes. It should be very interesting going into 2026, and we're almost there. So we're going to kind of like hammer home this conversation between now and the end of the year, just to kind of like prep, what do you guys have to do, things like that. So, you guys know what we talk about here. We look at eBay, sold listings of errors, varieties, key dates, things of that nature. Boxed coin also getting a lot of press as well. We're going to start integrating more of those into the Pocket Change market reports because it's necessary. We saw on the platform Whatnot. Quick little shout out to the folks there at this wonderful platform. And it's been great. My ride has been great on Whatnot, and you guys need to check it out firsthand. All right, if you are a lover of coins and currency and bullion and everything that's kind of like all involved in those three particular areas of numismatics and collecting, you might want to check out Whatnot, because there's a lot of sellers of all different types and tiers. We sell great inventory, and we love giving back to the community. It's a platform that really stands behind its customers. They have great reviews, and that's what I love about the platform. They couldn't make it easier to be a buyer and also a seller. You guys should check it out. There's a QR code right on screen. You scan that today, get signed up, you get $15 off your very first item. Hey, that's the least I could do. I wish I could give more, But we got started $15, and then the deals just come naturally as you attend our shows. We do it twice a week, at least we try to. But if you don't like using the QR code, we'll also have the clickable links down below in the description box. And heck, we'll also pin it into the comment section of this video to make it easier if you just want to access it that way. Okay, we're going to go ahead and jump right in. First one up on the list. Man, we haven't talked about one of these in a little while. Not that they haven't sold or they haven't been found, but, you know, when at the time of recording and just doing data gathering, you know, 61D over horizontal D variety, you know, sometimes pops up, sometimes it doesn't, you know. I'm saying that there are less of these being found today than there ever has been. Used to be that we used to hunt through BU rolls of 61Ds, a very accessible date. I would say 10, 15 years ago. These days, some of these 1960s, you know, full dated BU rolls are becoming even harder to find. 61D, 1960D is another great date. 63D is another one that is high atop the mountain. 68D has been exploding here recently as well. Can't even find any of those out there these days. 61D over horizontal D is one of the big chaser varieties. It's only going to be a matter of time before this thing becomes even more popular than it already is, because of the type of repunch mid-mark it is. Usually we look at other dates that have the D or the mid-mark over a horizontal mid-mark. One that comes to mind that is quite valuable is the 42D over D, or D over horizontal D variety of the Jefferson Nickel, which is worth hundreds of dollars in decent shape. And then when they become to be like mid-state condition, they're like $1,000 plus. And, you know, any other types of this specific type of RPM are very highly collectible. Now, the reason why that this one here is on the list is very simple. I mean, this thing is pretty strong. This one ended up selling for $20.15. So, I mean, not too bad. But you can kind of see the writing on the wall that, you know, based off of the popularity and the appearance of this variety, this thing will find its stride here in the next year or two, especially with, you know, the penny disappearing and all that stuff. Not really so much disappearing because there was a buttload of them in the commerce system today. But, you know, people are going to be clearing out BU rolls off the market. They're going to either be really wildly expensive or they're just going to be non-existent. So both of those to keep in mind. If you're able to access any of these BU rolls, you know, make sure you do before it's too late. While they're still somewhat affordable, there are dates that are just like out of control. 69S is $150+ roll. OBW rolls are quite expensive for that year. But as long as there's kind of like a big variety tied to that date and mid-mark, that's just going to make it even more expensive and even tougher to find when you do need it the most. We also talk about currency. We have a 1988 $20 bill with a cool little fold over error. Now, what's really, really crazy to me is that this thing has seen a whole lot of circulation. The note is it's not going to win any beauty contests. As you could tell, it's got folds and all that stuff. But yeah, someone, you know, ended up spending this thing 100 times over. Little did they know that has a nice little fold over. So a corner of the sheet had folded over and then printed over. All right, so that's why you're able to see some of the design elements, like the prefix letter to that bottom left serial number is actually on the fold over part right there on top of the 20 on the corner. So yeah, really quite crazy. Here's what it looks like when it's folded in from the backside. So these type of errors, anything fold over or butterfly fold or anything of that nature, these things are wildly expensive in today's market. This one ended up selling, by the way, keeping in mind condition, because this is nothing to write home to mother about, still managed to pull in $179 here in the last day or two. And by the way, all of the activity that we're talking about from eBay are within the last 24 to 48 hours. So very recent, up to the minute pricing, as you would expect here on Blue Ridge Silverhound. Next one that we have here, my goodness, really cool. I think I like what they did with the photo setup here, where they kind of like mated two images into one to make it just a really, really nice eye-catching thumbnail picture. But this is actually a 1966 special mid set. All right, so the Mint produced special mid sets in place of Proof sets back in 65, 66, and 67. Now, even though they've taken a step back in the quality department, the SMS coins are still very well struck. They have a polarizing difference between this and the business strikes. They're still struck twice, although they don't have the most refined die prep that we used to see from Proof coins, where you had the mirrored finish and all that. But one thing's for sure, these coins here in the SMS packages are still produced with the highest quality in mind, so mid-errors are going to be quite scarce. Check out this nickel that was in this SMS set. They sold it as a full set, by the way. You have what looks to be struck through debris, which is a combination of grease and dirt and metal shavings and all sorts of great stuff that had hardened into like a really tough piece of... it's like the greasy equivalent of shoe leather. You know how tough that is. But it was sitting on the die. And it ended up striking this one coin that you see here, obscuring some of the letters in States of America and cents. Really quite scarce. We don't see this that often. When we do, some of them aren't too impressive. Because through the quality control process, those Mint employees are still pulling these out and putting in a proper coin in there. Because back in the day, folks that bought these, they still cared about the quality, and part of that component, unfortunately, is Mint errors at the time. Were not looked too fondly upon that they are today. But today is a completely different time of life compared to, say, 60 years ago, and this one shows here. This one's selling for $179.99 for an SMS set that today's market is about $12. 12 to 15 bucks. These things are rising. They used to be 8 to 10 bucks, and with silver going up, and just kind of like the rising tides bringing up all the ships. That also includes things like this that are quite affordable, and they still are, but not as affordable as they once were about a year ago. This is a brand new bank box. It's been opened to verify the date. It's 2023 Phillies. Okay, it's a great day to look for those extra V variants, which PCGS and NGC are grading. All right, so this is a full $25 bank box. It ended up selling for $125, 5 times face value. Just a little word of advice. The open box types will sell for a little bit less than one that is sealed. Now, that's going to be a tough call if you have any other box other than like an NF String & Sons, where they have the little holes in the box so you can tell what the date is. These are Loomis. I could tell the wrapper in there, and you can even see a few of them say Loomis on there. These have the sealed cartons, so you won't know what they are unless you open them, which is fine. People will still, they'll still open it and keep it together. But 5 times face value, that number is going to go up here in the near future. Just something to keep an eye out on. I know a lot of people are shut out from ever ordering any more of these. So we'll see how that goes. My recommendation, my advice to you guys is just to keep trying. Try different banks and see what you do there. It's always better to talk to 100 people rather than just talking to like 1 or 2 people at your main banks, because that's not going to get you anywhere. If they said no, then that's pretty much a firm answer on their end. Pretty neat one here. We have a double struck 1964 Jefferson nickel. in this little BCW airtight case here. The secondary strike is off center by about 98%. So it does say lib on the, the off center double struck portion of the coin. Nothing too crazy or dramatic, but hey, this one ended up selling for $43.49 with 16 bids. This one looks like it had circulated a little bit, just overall look and appearance of the coin. It's not like mid-state or anything, probably more AU in condition, which really tells us, and a lot of people say, well, you can't find stuff like this out there. Well, if they're circulating, that's to the contrary. These exist. They're out there. Even I found a few of them, all right? I actually found one in a Coinstar, probably about 3 years ago. It wasn't a double struck, but it was an off-center struck Lincoln. It was like off-center by about 80%. It was crazy. But yeah, I mean, this is more of a testament that you just don't give up. They're out there in some way or form or fashion. Boy, man. I've sold a few of these over the last year, and they just keep going up and up. I was selling these full BU rolls of bicentennial quarters because every so often I would come across them, and they're neat as heck, and they're a little bit of a throwback, of what what once was, and here we are. We are a couple months away from, guess what, the 250th anniversary of our country. Boy, 50 years had really gone by. I'm not 50 myself, I'm close, but yeah, I was never around when these coins first started releasing, which is a shame. I wish I would have known. So a full $10 roll, and I know there's 2 rolls here. There was 2 available. He ended up selling both of them. This is for a lot of 1, sold for $72 with 28 bids. Again, my goodness. I was selling these probably over the summer. I had a few rolls for like $30-$40. So they've definitely gone up. The closer we get to 250th anniversary time for next year, that's when it'll really, really make a huge difference with these things. And not to mention, these are Denvers. There's always a chance you could find the FS101 double to die obverse. And there's also a FS102, although it's not very impressive. That FS101 is a big variety on this date, and you could only find it on the Denver struck coins. Just a neat one here, not a date that we come across too often for off-center strikes, but it's a 1940S. What's also neat, this is a dual mint error. It's also got lamination on the reverse over the word one going into pluribus there. So it's a retained lamination fragment that's still on the coin. This one, by the way, is selling for $104.60. These are picked up to become a part of date sets. So there are a few dedicated off-center date collectors. If there's a specific date or mint mark they need, this one I can tell you is a little bit on the tougher side. It's not one that I normally come across through my investigation of doing PCMR stuff, but yeah, pretty cool. $100, coin here, and I'm fine with that. That's what I thought it would be. Yeah, U.S. Mint products, some old stuff here. I mean, hard to believe that the 2005 American Bison design is 20 years old as of this year. So they sold these bags with $50 face value. Wow, holy crap, that's a lot of nickels. Yeah. What is that? 1,000 nickels is $50 face, and on the little tag there, these are Denver minted 2005s. You know why that matters? Is because the 2005D is the date and mint mark where you could find the speared bison variety, which is a die dent right that's sitting right on the coin. And it looks like a spear. Boink, Poor bison never saw it coming. But this is a sealed 2005D American Bison nickel bag from the mint. This one here is selling for $121.70. So just over double face there for that one. Yeah, gotta love old silver certificates, right? They're very affordable, especially the worn down ones. This is a 35C, by the way, an E block. Doesn't look anything too crazy on the front. And again, this is more of like, I gotta tell you, you gotta look at both sides of the note because you might just miss something. I mean, would you miss this? A drastically misaligned printed reverse where you could see the next corresponding note. Yeah, this thing is crazy, but you wouldn't know it if you didn't flip the note over to look at the back. The back is the part of the note where most people just ignore a lot, for whatever reason, probably because it's just one print process for the reverse of that sheet. This one right here, pretty big sale, $303. Again, guess what? It's not graded, so a graded version of this same note in this same condition will probably end up selling pretty close to that $303 as well. Here's another fold over here, this time on 1988A $1 bill. Seller doing a really good job with the arrows for reference points there. But you could see that corner of the note was folded over and then, cut and printed and all that great stuff. This one right here sold for $384, and condition really still does matter on these. Compared to the first fold over on that $20 bill we looked at, which is really ragtag, this one right here is a really nice, crispy, uncirculated looking piece, which does it a lot of favors in what you're going to end up realizing when it goes finally for sale. So we talked about one of these on the last PCMR. There was another one that ended up selling, 1897 Indian head cent with the what they call the one in neck variety. So back in the day, Mint employees would hand punch the individual digits of the date into the working die. Okay, it wasn't what it is today, where it's part of the working die package, but they used to test out kind of like strike quality and firmness and hardness of certain areas of the coin. So they would take one of these number punches and they would punch them in the denticles, which are the little teeth there on the edge. They would punch them into the hair. They would punch them into various areas. So this one right here, they had repunched the one into the front of the neck, where you could see the actual flag point of the top of the one poking out there. It looks painful, by the way, as if he swallowed something. But, or she, Lady Liberty, right? Or, whatever. I gotta get off this ride. But, anyways, very popular variety. All right, this is a good one here, and it's highly desired in all grades. This one right here is a pretty low grade, probably a good 6. Still selling for $37.99. It's a great coin to cherry pick if you're going through like bulk low end Indian head cents at your local coin shop. Usually they have them for $1 or less per coin, and this is like one of the more notable varieties on an otherwise common date issued. And that's what makes it popular. There's a lot of misplacement marks and things like that can be found through a lot of dates of Indian head cents. Dimes coming back in a huge way because of the redesign next year upcoming. 1990p Roosevelt dime struck off center by about 15-20%, and this particular one selling for $54. Okay, these things just waking up all of a sudden. They never used to be this pricey about a year or two ago because at the time nobody cared about Roosevelt dimes. Now they're actually giving it care. And that's because of all the press with the redesign coming up. And boy, how about low budget, if you could call it that? 1972 doubled die obverse. This is the FS 101 variety on a coin. This is like one of the most well-loved 1972 FS 101s I have laid eyes on in probably about a year. Even still, this one is like an XF40. I mean, it's still not bad. I don't see too many that are like this low grade, but this just is further proof that this is the kind of variety that is identifiable, even in much lower grades. This one I would be willing to bet you could still see this one in like good in VG condition, if that exists. So many Lincoln cents were made over the last like 70 years, 80 years, that these things don't have time to circulate down to to good VG, like the Indian head cents were back in the day. But if you need one of these and you didn't want to spend $400-500 and up, this one ended up selling for $255.15. It was a buy it now hit that lasted probably like half an hour. It didn't take long. People had to like say him and haw on this one, and that's why it took about 30 minutes. I saw it and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But I have a couple of these already. Didn't want another one. And it's worth exactly what it's sold for. You know, some would even say this one could probably stretch to 300. But this is a very fine and acceptable price tag on this XF40 version here. Cool one here. I think because it's toned, that's what really gives one the extra amount of pizzazz. And collectors love something like this with the pink and magentas that we're seeing here on this 1975 broad-struck Lincoln set. Pretty nice. $55 is what it's sold for, which is a little bit higher than what I've seen other similar dates of the same type of mint error sell for. You know, these are usually about $30-35 a piece. The toning, I think, really pushed this one into much more desirable means than before. Cud die break. Is this our first one of the day? I think so. 1983P with a die break cud over the words "We and Trust" on the obverse there. I haven't seen this one in a while. You know, there are a few. One coming up that I've seen all the time. This one here sold for $36.50 with 11 bids. Still very strong money for that piece there. 2023 Lincoln Shield set with some strike through on the obverse there. They call this a field restricted strike through. And they're really cool. It looks like a bunch of comets kind of like flowing across, you know, the backdrop there of outer space. But you can see that big old indentation on the back of Lincoln's head too. That is also a strike through. It's usually like grease and debris bits and things like that. Very dirty dies. And this is where the feeder finger is actually making contact with the face of the die, you know, kind of dragging around that grease and debris. So every single one, in theory, will have like a different shape to it. The strike through, that is. $14.95 on this one. This is one that we've seen quite a few of when it was first released 2 years ago. So, you know, the price is fine. You know, it's not too cheap. It's not too high. It's just right. Just a neat one here. I know these are not cherry pickable by any means, but it's a 2000 Lincoln Memorial set. Double struck. Secondary strike is about 85% off center. $47.15 with 15 bids on this guy here. Very attractive. And it's got a uniface on the reverse as well. And this right here, let this be a lesson to all you folks out there stacking silver. And especially if you have 90%. 90% been getting a lot of negative press lately because it's like nobody's buying it at the same time. Nobody's selling it. You know, dealers, they tend to want to just wholesale it out at the end of the day if they end up buying a nice position. But man, this is one of those cases where an $8-9 coin can end up turning into a massive payday if you play your cards right and you look at the coin up close. This is a 1934 Washington quarter. It's a relatively common date. All right, so we're not going to say this thing's a rarity of any sort by date alone, but ladies and gentlemen, this one is the FS 101 doubled die obverse. I mean, this one is unmistakable. You and I, folks, would agree that this one is pretty easy to see. Now, obviously, you know, if you have your 10 times jeweler's loop, you know, that's going to help confirm things up for you, but I mean, let's be serious. There's a few dates of Washington quarters from the 30s and 40s that are absolutely bonkers, and they all tend to look like this. So, again, cue in the $8-9 coin that ended up selling for $126.95. Buy it now hit. Could it have gone higher? Maybe. You know, the coin isn't in like a nice, fine 15 condition. It's not bad. But this is a very strong variety on a otherwise, you know, highly populated date where they did mint a whole bunch of these. 1983P, here we go. The same date, 1983P is a very common date for Cud die breaks on Jefferson Nichols. Here's another one. This is that the Twin Peaks Cud. This is a very, very well-known one. This is like a very common one too. If you're out there looking, this is probably one of the ones you would find. $37.94 is the finale on this piece here. Again, very, very good price on that one. And we're going to end things off here on one of my favorite varieties, but also a very desirable variety, but also one that you could find pretty easily with minimal looking. Is the 1956 D over D RPM 1 FS 501 variety. It's in the Cherry Picker's Guide. Classic double D look to it. The secondary Denver mid-mark was punched west of the primary, and there's full-on separation of that secondary Denver mid-mark. I mean, that's how cool this one is. $29 for this piece here, and what I would say is about an XF40 grade. All right, a little bit darker patina as well. And another great way to end off the Pocket Change Market Report for the weekend. Again, information in this video is for educational use only. Okay, that's priority, not financial advice. Please do not take it as that. Please collect and or grade your coins responsibly. I am your host, Sean, with Blue Ridge Silverhound. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. It was a huge pleasure to talk about some of the coins that you can find out there in circulation today. We have a show on Whatnot coming up one day this week on Thursday. We have that show bookmark. Come check things out. Come by, say hello, if you're so inclined. And, we're a great community over there. Talk about the hobby. It's a great way to kind of, capture me in a corner and ask me anything that you want, because we talk about everything. But that's going to go ahead and do it, folks. You guys have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy your Super Sunday of football and MLB playoffs and everything else that you love doing, getting ready for Halloween as well. Thank you guys so much for your support. I will see you guys next time. Have a great day and stay safe.